G'day, Asia Mahara here. With a response to another comment on the live stream I did on July, no, not July. It was August 3rd, okay, 2020. So it's not quite a day ago as I'm filming this, recording this, but it will be a day ago soon enough. So now I just have to find the comment again, sorry. So this video, a person asks, this is a person's comment. I recognize I've suffered an unhealthy bond with a person with BPD traits. I also know this is a familiar pattern since my mother had similar traits. So whether these two people in this person's life had traits of or actually had BPD, maybe they don't know, hard to say. So, but it's interesting that, as this commenter points out, for those of you out there to think about, many people do have a parent with BPD or NPD traits, or that could be diagnosed with either if they haven't been, and then you end up with somebody a lot like your mom or dad when you're codependent as well. And it's not accidental. It's what happens in your unconscious mind from the wounded inner child inside of you. And so the commenter said, I also know this is a familiar, read that part with traits of the mother. Understanding this helps me distance myself from and manage the discomfort from the ex and manage the discomfort. And the question that the commenter had is whether the inevitable Hoover, which I've experienced, and when they promise, where they promise everything will be better and fine. By the way, first and foremostly, it's not true. They can't change that quickly, even if they intend to. They want to go get therapy and treatment. Not going to happen in a month, 2 months, 6 months, half a year, 2 years, and so when they come back with that Hoover, and they're seemingly a little bit like, or more like the person that you met in the idealization, mirroring, and their people-pleasing phase, it's just not so. But many people have to go through that before they realize that, unfortunately. And so the question really in the comment is, so when the ex-Hoovers promising everything will be better and wanting to come back for all the reasons, of course, that they still need to seek identity through you and all those types of things I've talked about on this channel and more, and they promise everything will be okay, the meat of the question is this. Is this hoovering, is this wanting to come back or needing to come back or whatever the case, an ex with BPD, are they suffering the same unhealthy bond, or whether what they're doing is driven by different emotional drives? Well, good question. Because in the unhealthy bond that happens in a relationship for a person with codependency and the person with BPD, the person with codependency, and of course not all codependents are the same, not all people with BPD are the same, but the person with codependency has some or more ability to be somewhat intimate emotionally. Of course, everyone has the ability to, otherwise, likely. But to be somewhat emotionally intimate, which can be a struggle for some people with codependency, to varying degrees. They also have, most codependents have an ability to attach, and to get into the unhealthy bondedness of it all, which means your attachment isn't secure. And the love there all the way around, right? And the dynamic of, quote, love, unquote, isn't really healthy love. But so when people with BPD Hoover, and when they come back, if they come back, or they come back in Hoover, and they always promise it's going to be better, and they might even really apologize, and they might even really mean it. But the point is, they can't do it without therapy. They don't just change like that. They just don't. So are they coming back hoovering and doing that, and or are you getting into on and off relationship situations with them because they have the same unhealthy bond that you do? Well, they have a part of that, is the best way I can explain it. Because when that unhealthy bond happens, it does happen between, to a degree, the person with codependency and the person with borderline personality. But being as it's an unhealthy bond, remember that that is not the formation of any kind of secure or healthy attachment. So I still stand by what I've said in many other videos here. People with BPD do not attach. They do not know how to love unless significant treatment, which means for in relationships, especially significant other ones, but for a lot of people with BPD, even means for friendships, to really truly be mutual and reciprocal in them, to really attach, and to really be able to have love, whether that's friendship love or significant other love or any relationship type, quote, love, unquote. People with BPD need years of significant treatment to find the actual lost self. So they're coming back and hoovering you, and or you're in the on and off position of relationship because you're choosing that too, but they're coming back, right? They want to try again and again, and maybe so do many people with codependency. So when that's happening, it's being emotionally driven in people, especially untreated, but even like not well enough treated, or even if treated for a few years but haven't got to the deeper work. It's not for the same, it's not what drives them emotionally is not the same thing as what drives codependence emotionally. So, and then one could say there's a bit of an overlap there, but it's not the same thing. So in answer to the commenter's question, no, people with BPD are not coming back. I mean, in a way they are sort of coming back because of the unhealthy bond, but they never bond. That's what's unhealthy about it. And actually, many people with codependency never really bond either. Some do, some have, for lack of a better way to put it, less codependency and more ability to, it's still not going to be secure attachment though. But so people with BPD, what's driving them emotionally, often unbeknownst to them, they don't know this consciously, is they can't be alone. Codependents struggle with that too, many codependents. Their emotional drive to come back, to hoover, etc., is because you are still holding, you are still their object other. And that's subconscious on their part too. And you are still that object other parent representation. And you are still holding that space for them when they're out there. They feel abandoned, they're alone, they don't know how to cope. Even if they meet somebody and that doesn't work out, it's not like every time somebody with BPD goes to the next person, that person automatically becomes object other. Because many people will remain in the object other status subconsciously or unconsciously with a person with BPD. So it's really driving them to come back. First of all, it's repetition cycles of pursuit, of emotionally unavailable or worse parent, right? Which in a different kind of language, it can be the same thing for the codependent. It's pursuit of needs not met in childhood, which you need to know more about, and that's why you need to not, engage a hoover. You need to get into your own treatment. So the drivers for people with BPD hoovering are essentially the same as when they first idealize you, mirror you, and do that people-pleasing thing in the beginning that is not, quote, love, unquote, bombing. They're coming back because you are object other. They're seeking relief from what they're feeling, and they want to get it from you and through you, and now they're out there floating around without that sense of identity again, and they want to come back and merge with you to get the sense of identity back from you, through you. So this is unconscious, but it is the emotional driver of their repetition compulsion cycles of relating, and then the relationship ruptures. That pattern. And then trying again and trying, because that's what they had to do in very young childhood going forth in pursuit of the unavailable parent or the cluster B parent. So even though there's this unhealthy bond that's talked about in many different words for it, that's not the emotional driver exactly of people with BPD. Could it amount to the same thing if the codependent allows the person, engages in being hoovered and trying again, which never works, and the cycles of splitting speed up, etc., which I have many videos on. Just take a look around if you haven't seen them yet. Please be sure to check my community tab where I put up older videos for people to find easier. So even if it is a little bit of overlap similarity between the codependent and the person with BPD, because this unhealthy bond, this unhealthy fit, not going to make it any healthier, not going to make it a real attachment, because the fact that it's an unhealthy bond means that the attachment is very unhealthy too. So I hope that helps people, because people with BPD are their emotional drivers are deep within their unconscious, and they are repetition compulsion cycles based on their response to their adverse childhood experience. And codependents are involved in this based on their own adverse childhood experience that isn't to the depth of those with BPD, and or you have a more resilient temperament. So all that can happen when they come back, they don't have the exact same reason. They might be looking for that sense of achieving the same thing that was there before, but that can never be replicated, because that idealization, mirroring, and the people-pleasing aspect of the beginning and who they showed you that you thought they were, they can't really replicate that again. Could they replicate it with somebody new? Maybe, but it's only going to be the same cycle. So when people BPD Hoover and promise it's all going to be better, their emotional drivers are not the same as the emotional drivers of people with codependency. So people with codependency are emotionally driven because you really think that person loved you. You really think you love that person, and in some cases you really did. And for some codependents, it's not really, you don't even get near that. But the love is love of rescue for codependents. And the love is love that is trying to seek in the codependent unhealthy relational patterns what you didn't get from a parent, even though your seeking is by overgiving a lot, caretaking, etc. So there's overlap, but it's not the same. And if you engage a Hoover and you try again and you're in an on-off again cycle with somebody with BPD, the same things are going to happen over and over again, and their repetition compulsions and your reactions and your being caused pain and them trying to deal with their pain from the past. And so you're just going to re-get together in the unhealthy bonded nature of it all, and yet that's not what's driving the person with BPD. You are still their object other if they're still hoovering around you and are making attempts to get back. And if you engage them and you let them come back, invariably without fail, their splitting cycles will speed up. You'll have less, quote, good time, unquote, together, and more really not good time and painful time. And it will just lead to the same rupture and however the relationship ended in the first place. And this will happen over and over and over if you allow it to, if you engage them. And I would really highly recommend you don't. So this unhealthy fit, this unhealthy bond is not driven emotionally for the people with codependency for the same reason that it's driven for those with BPD. And yet there's some overlap in the middle. So I hope that helps. And from all my experience, 30 years working with clients, all the comments on my channel, not that they all address the same thing, and the videos I've done on this before, my own personal lived experience in which I never really hoovered anybody or tried to do that again. When you've been damaged and a relationship is ended and you're in a world of hurt, it can feel compelling to want them back. But it will just be another painful mistake on your road to where you actually need to go. So I hope that helps somebody today, and take care.